Welcome to episode 25 of Dear Nina, Conversations About Friendship. Today we're talking about group texts and how they can help build friendship and community, but also create issues. Some people love them, some people hate them. Love it or hate it, you're probably in a group chat once in a while or even very regularly. So we're going to tackle the issue of group texts, the ideal uses for them, the less than ideal uses, and all the potential etiquette opportunities that could make our group chats more effective and enjoyable. I say opportunities because sometimes etiquette has a bad rap, but when done well, it actually can make communication better. Now, who is this we I speak of? Thank goodness I am joined by a well-known thinker in the world of friendship work, Kat Vellos, author of We Should Get Together, The Secret to Cultivating Better Friendships. Kat is quoted in many of the friendship articles I share in my monthly friendship roundups because she's a sought-after speaker and facilitator who helps people experience authentic connections and develop healthier friendships. I've personally named Kat's book as one of my favorite books about friendship because it's so full of practical, actionable tips. If you follow me on Instagram at dear.nina.b, you've seen me posting about Kat's book and sharing her posts. And everyone should follow Kat at Kat Vellos _author, where she also shares fantastic illustrations that go along with her work that she has created herself. She's a designer, a writer, a speaker, a thinker, a researcher, and I'm really, really honored to have Kat on the show to share her expertise with us. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you so much for the beautiful welcome, Nina. It's so good to be with you today.
I have so many things I would love to talk to you about because your book is so full of fantastic friendship work, but I'm going to limit us to the topic at hand. And today's topic, as you know, is all about group texts. And I've been thinking about group texts as a way that friendship and community happens successfully.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in this topic.
And, you know, if you can't show up in person, then these texts can function as a bridge between times you can be in person. But that said, it also can be a place where communication breaks down. So my first question for you is, when group chats are going well, what would you say are the unspoken rules, like that unspoken etiquette that people are following?
Yeah. So when things are going well, a thing that is, I would say, an unspoken rule of group text is, even though it's a virtual space in a way, you know, it's only text communication, it's a written communication, it's still a group setting. And so I think the unspoken rules of group settings apply here. So example, being kind and respectful to other people. If you were to disrespect somebody in a group text or insult them, I think it would be just as bad as humiliating them in front of a room of other people. And so the same like social norms we have around treating others the way you want to be treated and being respectful, I think really should be an unspoken rule in a group text as well, because other people are watching and listening, and that matters. I think another unspoken rule of a group text, you know, using that same example of being in a real room with multiple people, is to respect the vibe, you know? So if the mood is silly and playful, or if the mood is like deep and serious and reflective, there's an unspoken rule when we're in a group conversation or a group space that, you know, you want to respect the vibe, you want to respect the mood and other people's emotional states, and to take that into consideration with the things that you contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like if we're talking about somebody had a really bad thing happen, everyone's saying so sorry and all that, to come in with some silly meme is not the time. You have to read up. Just because you're late in the conversation doesn't mean that you can be not keeping up. It doesn't mean you have to keep up when the text arrives. I think that's another unspoken rule. If you're reasonable, you know that your friends are going to fall behind, but they're going to scroll up for a little bit just to get a sense of, the mood. I like how you said that, the mood and the vibe.
Yeah.
I really like your point about it is a group setting and what would you do if you're in person. Another thing that is nice to do, not everyone does it, is if there are new people in the group. So if it's just your regular friends, that's one thing. But if it's like all of a sudden you're on some sort of committee and now there's a group text, to take a minute for everyone to share their names and what name goes with which phone number.
Oh gosh, yes.
Not everyone does that though, Kat. And by the way, no different that in person, some people don't take the time to just take a second to explain how everyone knows each other and just introduce. I really, it's a pet peeve where if I walk into any kind of group setting and some of the people know each other and some don't, that the person who really knows everyone doesn't take just a minute to say, oh yeah, this is this person. And you have to have introductions. I'd say in a group text, you sort of have to do it yourself. So I will often, if I'm in any kind of group text situation that is not my regular people, say right from the get-go, hi, I'm Nina. This is my phone number. And I will ask people for theirs. I'll say, who's 612 so that I can put it in my phone so I'm not talking to a number.
I know. Yeah, that's a really good point. Making introductions, introducing anyone you bring to the group, and not being shy to introduce yourself as well. Because, yeah, it gets really strange if there's like 4 numbers of people that you know and it says their name, and then there's 4 anonymous just numbers. And you're like, who are these people? And that also really affects, I think, how much people are willing to open up in a conversation, both in person and in a group text. It's like, if you don't know these people and there's been no acknowledgement of the fact that you need to be introduced, that's going to affect how much you communicate with each other.
Yeah. And I think what you and I are both speaking to is these kinds of communication are not going away. So while it might be nice to say, oh, in person, it's this way, we can't always be in person, and nothing to do with COVID even. Obviously, that's part of it. But we were group chatting before COVID. I mean, it's not going anywhere. And it's good to have these skills. Sometimes 4 months later, somebody will be like, wait, who was 952? And I'm like, what? You still haven't put people's, like, we said this. We said this 4 months ago. Put it in your phone. I would say another tip for people to keep, well, again, back to like the unspoken rule of what makes these kind of chats successful is I would advise everybody mute their group chats. And now I guess I'm speaking from an iPhone. Do you have an iPhone?
No, I haven't.
Oh, so I'm glad you don't, because we can both say.
I've gone back and forth between iPhone and Android multiple times, and I'm currently using an Android.
Can you mute a group conversation?
I can I have a Google Pixel, and I don't know that this is universally available on Android. You're saying it is available to you on iPhone?
Yes. Well, you're going to still see the little number on your notifications. You're going to see, like, if you have your phone put away and then you pick it up, you're going to say, oh, wow, I missed 20. I mean, you'll see the number, but it won't have buzzed, vibrated. It won't have interrupted you in any way except visually if you have it out. So it's kind of nice.
Absolutely. I definitely do that. I mean, I tend to keep my phone on silent almost all the time anyways, because I can't handle the constant pinging. But yeah, I would say mute it. As long as you know that you're going to remember to go back and check it. And, you know, you're going to see the notification dot anyways. So it's going to float to the top of your text. So like, yeah, do that, mute it. And also another person I've talked to about this topic has said that she particularly prefers to do group text on something other than the built-in SMS message app. Like she'd rather use Signal or WhatsApp or Kakao Talk or something like that, because there's generally more features related to muting a group text, leaving a group text, like adding, like there's just a little bit more control. And so for her, that's a much more preferable one to just using like the built-in app.
I hear you on that. I like WhatsApp a lot personally for a lot of reasons. It's much easier to do voice memos on WhatsApp, and I like voice memos, but
I'm big on those too.
Oh, love them. The thing about using something else besides what's on the phone is it requires buy-in from everybody. So everyone now has to have this other app that they're willing to check. But if you can get that everyone to agree to that works. For a while during the lockdown period, I had a group of friends where we were doing Marco Polo. So
exactly.
video.
Same thing. Everybody's got to download it.
Exactly. So, and then then it kind of fell off. We got over it, but it was nice for a while. One other thing I want to say about the unspoken rules that I think keep group chats going well is this idea that we sort of agree, those in the chat, that we are using this to keep in touch and to say something helpful, funny, like you said, the vibe. If there's a certain vibe, it cannot replace friendship, but I do think it has made a difference with some of my friends to make us feel closer because everyone's so busy, and then it keeps you in touch as long as you don't forget that it is not a replacement for being in person. I mean, if you live in town, if you live out of town, then it is what it is.
Yeah, all of these things, texting, whether it's a group text or even one-on-one, they're a supplement to maintaining the friendship. And one thing that I often encourage people to do if they want to make their friendship stronger, I just wrote about this on my blog the other day, is to make sure that your friendships don't only live in one communication channel. So not only in texting, not only in, letters, maybe not only in DMs on social media, whatever it might be, like make sure that your friendship inhabits more than one space, including the physical space if you can, because it just gives your friendship a lot more strength and it's woven into your life in a much more solid way.
That's great advice. I love that. So when group chats go off the rails, I saw you bring up this topic recently on Instagram. And it was a really nice conversation under there. When those chats sort of lose steam or something goes wrong, there's people are offended, annoyed. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Off the rails can mean any number of things. But what are you seeing from in your own life or hearing from your readers? What is it they're complaining about? Why do people say, I hate group chats?
Mm-hmm. So it's the overwhelm that they can introduce. So in the conversation, one of the conversations that popped up from that Instagram post was that the fact that when somebody goes in and does an emoji reaction on everybody's comment, like liking every single comment, and they do that 25 times, that means every single person in that group text is going to get 25 notifications.
Do you remember who brought up that complaint?
It was you.
Yes, it is my number.
Didn't want to throw you under the bus, but I was like, no, I'm okay. I agree, Nina.
I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring that up. Well, that goes back to what you said about thinking about the group setting. That if you were at a party and it was somebody's birthday, you would not walk up to every single person at that party and be like, watch me wish this person happy birthday. Watch me wish this person happy birthday. Or watch me laugh at this person's joke. You just wouldn't do that. That would be a strange thing to do, to drag 10 people with you everywhere you go so they could watch you tell the other person that what they said was funny or something.
Yes.
It's not considerate. It doesn't take into account, even if they're muted. So someone's going to pick up their phone and see the number 40 because, and it's all thumbs up half the time. Yep. All they had to do was write one text in the group that said, I'm all caught up now. You guys are hilarious. So sorry I fell behind. Or you don't. No one needs to apologize. But I think sometimes people go through and do those emojis just to say, oh, I saw this. I saw this. I saw this. I saw that.
Exactly.
You can just write that one time. Loved it. You guys are so funny.
Yeah, it's really weird because there's a part of it that comes from positive intent, which is the person wanting to give validation in the form of this emoji reaction to the other person, not perhaps realizing that they're also informing every single other person with a notification about that. And also, I love your example of the party and dragging everybody around. It's so invasive. But the thing that's also, I think, badly designed about this is that the platform, whether it's a WhatsApp or social media or whatever it is, they all want us to spend as much time as possible on the platform. And I think it's great to spend a lot of time in chat with your friends, but I think it's a bad design that it requires every single person to get a notification on an emoji reaction rather than say only the person to whom they are receiving the reaction should get the notification. And maybe a notification isn't even necessary. It's enough for the visual to be there when you look at the text later. So
yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yes. That would be really nice. And I think that would be a better, as a user experience designer, that's my design opinion on that.
Someone should, listen to you and invest in that. On that same note, on this idea of everyone having to watch each other sort of perform niceties. And I agree with you. The intention is always good. The intention is not only for the person receiving the thumbs up. The intention is also to sort of show your friends, I'm here, I'm part of this, I'm listening. I'm in several group chats for all kinds of reasons. And so I don't love when they're used for events. So if you have an event coming up and you put it in the group chat, the reason I don't like that is then every single person with that good intention in mind that we're talking about then says why they can or can't come. Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't make it. I have this tonight, or my kid has soccer. I have this, I have that. And it's maybe that should have been an email, because in an email, I think people know not to reply all, I can't come, my kid has soccer. But in text, no one, who's going to take the extra step to then just text the one person? For some reason, an email, I guess an email, you don't have to take an extra step. You just press the one arrow instead of the multiple arrows. I'm just thinking as I'm talking. But in a text, it really is an extra step to open up a new thing to just the person who sent the invitation. And so now I have to watch 12 people explain why they can't come to,
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm being so curmudgeon-y about it, but it gets to me.
Well, it relates to the thing you said of like, there's common issues, there's things that go off the rails. And some of it is the fact that like simply due to the way it's structured, it's likely that other people are going to feel spammed with too many texts or in this case, low quality text. To you, this is a low quality text for you to hear the reason why someone else can't attend the event. That's of like low meaning to you. And also the lack of control that you have over whether or not you receive these messages. It's rife with opportunities to be frustrated. And these are perfect examples of that as well. Another one that I thought of when you were saying, like, when everyone's replying back and saying why they can't come, is it can almost like, if you invite, 8 people over group text to come to your dinner or whatever it might be, and the first 4 people are all no's, it can start to make it seem like, this is going to be a failure.
Yes.
And it can perhaps invoke some kind of anxiety for the person who extended the invitation to be like, oh gosh, what's going to happen with the other 4 people? Am I a loser? Like, is everybody down on me? What's going on? There's this publicness of the decline that I think can make it a little bit harder, and then exert more pressure on the remaining people to be like, what's your answer going to be?
Yeah.
And none of that would be there if it was just individually.
Yes, an individual. Remember, like, getting an invitation in the mail and you didn't necessarily even know who was invited, whether they were coming. For certain, you wouldn't know if they were coming. Anything else from, especially when you put it on Instagram, that comes to mind that people complained about? There were some strong feelings in that post.
Yeah. I mean, one complaint was the fact that they can be never ending. Like, there's no built-in end date or time. They just keep going until they fade away. And the fact that, sometimes people share news in a group text that's actually more suited to a one-on-one phone call, or even a group conference call where you can, in real time with your voices, have a conversation. And if somebody shares something that's really significant, either like big news that's great or big news that's bad, putting that in a group text can kind of almost like cheapen the depth of the sharing. And so acknowledging that not everything is actually meant to be A, in a group text, or B, in a text at all. Choose your method of communication appropriate to the depth of what you're sharing, perhaps. Some other people say it's like too easy to lurk or not to participate, particularly in a planning situation, whether it's the group party thing like you're describing. Another one that I think of as well is, and this sort of relates to texting overall, is if you need to schedule something. So you brought up the scheduling example, and the time is of the essence, right? So I know when I say like, hey, let's get together, how about this day or this day at these times? That doesn't mean I'm holding those open in my calendar forever until I get the necessary reply. It's important to reply promptly, I think, when things are being scheduled, especially if people are penciling things into their calendar, because something else might come up and eat that time. And if you take 4 or 5 days to reply, you can't necessarily assume that the time someone offered is still available. And then you got to start all over again. Yeah. So I think with scheduling, whether it's in a group text or a one-on-one text, like, people should keep in mind, those have a higher urgency for a prompt and accurate reply versus just like cutting up and making jokes and sharing memes and just being like, what are you guys doing for lunch today or whatever?
Right. Like, business has to get dealt with sometimes. This all is a very natural segue to the next thing I wanted to talk about in terms of group texting etiquette. And let's say you do want to get off the group chat. I mean, there are times, probably not if it's your regular group of friends, but if it was a group that started because you were on a committee or something, and now it's just still going and people started to get to know each other. Maybe some friendships were formed. I do a lot of episodes, and I know you do a lot of writing and talking about making friends. I think what we're talking about here is keeping friends. To me, those are the two topics, making friends and keeping friends. This is in the keeping friends category. However, if a group chat started because of some activity and now you have made a couple of friends from it, but maybe you're somebody in that group who actually is you're good with where you are with your friendships. You don't really want to be in this chat until the end of time. How do you get out of that group chat? I think that's really hard without insulting everybody in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first off, if the device you're using allows you to leave a group chat, so the device and platform and app you're using lets you leave the group, congratulations, because they don't all let you do that. And some of them you're just like stuck in forever. And all you can do is like mute it and hope that that's enough.
Right.
Think about this the way you might exit if you needed to leave other kinds of group settings. Let's go back to the party example from earlier. You don't need to make a big deal about it and like feel like you need every single person to get your farewell message. It's okay to just make one statement that's loud enough probably for most people to hear, and the people that are in the kitchen chatting didn't hear you. So for me, I might say, if I was in a group text and it was just going on and on and on, and I was like, I need to get out of here. I either don't have the attention for this, or I need to focus on something else, or it's just too much. It's overwhelming. I might just say like, hey, y'all, this has been really, really fun, but I need to corral my focus this week or this month or right now. And my phone keeps blowing up with all your awesomeness, and I'm actually overwhelmed with awesomeness, and I need to focus on some other things right now. So I'm going to bow out of this group text for the time being, but it's been fun. Reach out anytime. See you later. And
that's lovely. I think that would work.
That's perfectly reasonable. People need to shift their attention and focus at different times. And we all understand the feeling of needing to step back, focus, regroup, just leave. We also live in a culture that makes it seem like things are only successful if they last forever and nothing should ever, ever, ever end. I disagree with that. And so, sometimes things need to end and we need to say goodbye, whether it's an individual farewell like that, or whether it's like, okay, well, this committee's been fun. If you want to come to the closing happy hour, we're going to have nachos and drinks at this place on this time, or you can just say goodbye here. See you later. We're done.
That would be nice if a facilitator has stepped up to really give everybody permission.
I can't help.
No, I am too. I lead creative writing groups twice a week, and I am very much also that facilitator. And when there isn't a facilitator, it's someone like me, I'm sure, like you too. It's noticeable. You're kind of like, someone needs to step up and make it okay for everyone to leave. I like everything you just said. I think that's all very helpful. And I'm excited to write up these show notes too, because I think people will find it helpful to see something like that in writing. Mm-hmm. Now, on that similar kind of topic of not getting out of a conversation, but just how to deal with someone on text, I put in my Facebook group, Dear Nina, the group. That's a private group that I oftentimes preview questions. And I just brought up that I was going to be talking about texting etiquette in general. And a few people did express that they are frustrated. And you and I addressed this a little bit in the scheduling example, when they have a question that goes unanswered or somebody suddenly disappears. Because like we said, there really is no end, but sometimes people do just disappear in the middle of a conversation and doesn't circle back. But let's think of it less of a disappear and more of they just are taking days to answer something that needs to be answered. Mm-hmm. Would you go back in and would you call? Do you text again and say, hey, we never heard back from you? I mean, this seems like really basic social 101, but I'm curious how you handle.
Yeah. If there's one thing that I've learned from researching adult friendship over the last several years, it's that it's never a good idea to jump to conclusions or take it personal if you don't hear back from somebody, or if it takes them a long time to reply, because people are really busy, really distracted. And delays are just a fact of adult life. So it's really not the norm, I think, that for people to reply immediately. Hopefully they reply somewhat promptly. But if you get a fast reply, like, great, congratulations, like celebrate, that's really good luck. The other thing that I also take into note here is that people are super forgetful. Being distracted leads to a forgetful life. Maybe the reason that they didn't reply to your text is because they picked up their phone, they opened their text to read it, and at that exact same moment, their dog jumps up on the coffee table, knocks their smoothie over onto the iPad, and then the 4-year-old starts having a tantrum, and then the doorbell rings with the delivery. And in all of this chaos and cleaning it up, they forget to reply. It's completely left their mind. And so that's maybe the reason that they didn't write you back, is because something else in their immediate moment actually took their attention and they just entirely forgot. Chances are they're not sitting back like, ha, 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 like laughing that they're causing you distress about not replying. They're not like eating bonbons and watching the seconds on the clock tick by. They're not doing that. They probably just got distracted because there's a million distractions in everybody's life. So there's nothing wrong with taking a breath, not taking it personal. And if you really need a timely answer back, just send a gentle ping back. Just send a little reminder, not like accusatory and mean and like, what the hell, but it's okay to just say like, hey, I need to just checking back in. I really want to get you involved in this thing that's happening Sunday afternoon. Since I'm making a reservation, I need to know by today at 7 if you're going to be in or out. no harm, no foul either way. Make it easy for people to decline, make it easy for people to say yes, and make it easy on yourself too while you're in the waiting period too.
Yeah, that's assuming the best is always a good way to go. And I know I am a very prompt texter, actually, but sometimes things do fall off. And same with email. I totally appreciate a circle back. I'm thrilled if somebody writes me and said, so were you able to do that date or not? I'm like, oh, I'm so glad it's there so that I can answer. I'm glad they reminded me. And so I guess we can assume other people probably are too. And if they're annoyed, maybe they'll answer faster next time.
Yeah, I also think that this might just be, again, coming with the perspective of researching what it's like for so many people and taking it into consideration, not taking it personal. Like my clock for my expectations around things like reply times is so stretched out now compared to where it was several years ago. If I send a text to a friend, I don't necessarily even expect to hear back for 2 or 3 days. So if I hear back immediately, cool, it's fun. But when you give yourself a more spacious orientation towards time and something that is an asynchronous conversation like a text, it's a lot more relaxing.
Yeah.
It's a lot less stressful.
There was a piece in the Washington Post in April. It was about texting etiquette in general. And the writer brought up a point that I think is a good one. I know other people struggle with, and it does fall into that assume the best bucket, but I can see how somebody would take this one a little more personally. If you pour your heart out in a text, and it can be argued whether that was appropriate in the text or not. In a lot of cases, it probably wasn't, but okay, it's happened. It's in there. It's in the text. And the person writes back with, well, I'd say the worst case scenario, they give it a thumbs up. They don't even put their own thumbs up. They use the thumbs up in the platform. I'd say that's like the lowest thing you could do. At least taking the time to choose an emoji might be better. Maybe worse than that is just the okay with like not even a smiley face. It's just an unequal communication. So you have said something emotional, heartfelt, whether it's an apology, a something, you're upset, I don't know, whatever it is. And then the other person is like, okay, or got it, or a thumbs up, or I doubt someone would do a thumbs down. But I mean, what happens next? I mean, that's a toughie, because as you noted in bringing up the question, maybe sometimes a text is not actually the best method to communicate pouring your entire heart out or something really, really long and complex or emotional. Maybe, have you ever read the 4 Agreements? It's been a long time, so remind me.
One of them that I think about often, and I think it applies here, is like choosing the right time to share something. Immediately is not always the right time to share something. And so in this case, maybe pouring your whole heart out in the text, maybe that's the only method and the only time you have. Or maybe it would be better to say, can we have a phone call? I have something that's on my heart I really need to share with you. And text doesn't feel sufficient to communicate that. And if for some reason that's not possible and you got to share it in the text, man, the thumbs up or the okay or the minimalist reply is such a cause of friendship angst. Because like you said, it's this imbalance. It's a lack of reciprocity in the emotional engagement of that conversation. So, and the other thing too, that's another layer of complexity on top of that, is the fact that for many people, I've recently learned this, the thumbs up emoji is actually like a passive aggressive, kind of a dismissive or even insulting emoji. In my generation, thumbs up is still acceptable. You give them a thumbs up, they get that it's a positive thing, not a negative thing.
Yeah.
But the minimalist reply to a maximalist expression in general is not a fit. Just like in a real life conversation, if you said something really serious to me, Nina, and I just stared at you and didn't react or respond or say anything, that would read really strangely. So the only caveat I put on this is to consider, is this person that you're communicating with always minimalistic in their texting? If it is regular for them to not write more than one sentence or a few words, then keep that in context, But if this is someone who does write a lot of text or like write lengthy text or respond, maybe then the thing is to check in and be like, oh, is there another time that we can talk about this? I really want to get your take on it. It's still on my mind. Do you have 5 or 10 minutes to talk on the phone today after work? And then you can actually invite the conversation and have like a fuller expression of this thing that is meaningful to you in a form of communication that's probably going to be more fulfilling, which is a voice-to-voice conversation. Another thing that I think is really significant here is to think about a way that if you are the person, like, let's say you receive this like huge heart pouring out text and you actually don't have capacity to reply with another like super, super long text or something significant, rather than just giving a thumbs up or an okay or a wow and leaving it at that, actually say like, wow, that sounds like a lot. I wish I had the capacity to write something longer right now to give you acknowledgement or to talk about this more deeply. I don't have time for that right now, but I really want you to know I care. And let's pick a time to connect. Here's 2 or 3 options where we can pick up this conversation. Then the person understands, like, you're not going to get a full reply right now. You're not going to get a whole conversation right now, but this person still cares. They are letting you know they acknowledge seeing what you've shared. They are acknowledging the meaning of it. And they're also offering another option to engage more deeply in a way where they can be more present.
Yes, this is why you specialize in cultivating connection and healthier friendship. That is such good advice. And it does exactly the thing the person who wrote the text probably needs. It just scratches that itch of validation. I was heard. They probably don't even need a long response. All they need is what you said is, this message was received in the spirit it was intended. I can't answer. No one would say it exactly that way, but that is what you're saying. I heard you. I love you. I really got your message in the deepest way. That's all anybody wants to know, I think. Everything we're talking about leads really well to the Better Friendship Goal of the Week, which is how I end every episode. And I want to suggest to everybody, and then Kat, you can add anything you would want, that for the Better Friendship Goal this week, pay attention to our texting habits and do 2 things at once. Kat and I have really covered them both, which is take things with a lot less personally, which means, so be aware of how our texting might come off. So you might have to have some awareness that the way you text or don't text might have a certain way it comes off. But also, if you're an avid texter and you're put off by somebody's curt responses, just consider that maybe that is their texting style. Like Kat said, that if that is often how they text, it's not about you. And they're just not a big texter. I mean, if you're going to text my mother ever, if you get a response at all, you're getting a short response. And it's not about you. She'd rather talk to you on the phone, which is actually a compliment in some ways. Not everyone likes to communicate via text. So whether that's group chats or one-on-one, like you might have a friend in the group chat who's really quiet. And I would try to give that person some benefit of the doubt that it's not like they don't want to be part of things. It's just probably really too overwhelming. And if you're that person who does just give a heart to somebody's long text, and maybe consider just stepping up a little bit with a version of what Kat suggested, at least a few words of encouragement and acknowledgement instead of just an emoji. Anything else, Kat, you want to add?
Yeah, I would offer as a suggestion to embrace the voice memo. Written text isn't the only way or the best way to communicate something asynchronously. And that when you send a voice memo, you can say a lot more in a lot less time with more warmth and more tone and vibe and mood and feeling than you can in writing. And so this is also really great for people who are having eye strain issues or just don't like texting or being on their device as much. Like, the warmth of a voice memo can do so much more than a text, even though it is sent often in the same app that you're using to send the text messages. So it's one of my favorite ways to connect with friends from a distance. And I encourage you to try it if you haven't done it yet.
I feel so validated that you said that, because I have been trying to convert people to the voice memo. I'm a voice memo evangelist. I love the voice memo. It's, yes, everything you said. And it, by the way, I think is probably why people like podcasts so much. Because again, it's something different is conveyed. I've been writing about friendship since 2014, but I think my written voice about friendship is very different than my speaking voice. I think in my writing voice about friendship, I have at times come off as more of, you should do this, you should do that, like more of an expert voice. I don't consider myself an expert, but I probably sound like I'd consider myself one when I'm writing. The podcast is much more, I'm just a fellow questioner. I really am. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to not take something personally when somebody just gives me the okay. I'm just part of it. And that's hard to convey in writing, at least for me. It's much easier to convey speaking. So I love the voice memo. Kat, I want to give you a chance to tell everyone where they can find you before we say goodbye.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to check out my work, they can head to my website, which is weshouldgettogether.com. On there, I have my information about my books. You can sign up for my newsletter. I have events periodically. You can get on the wait list for those. If there's not one immediately, you can buy, a ticket or a spot too. I'm using social media less this year, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Kat Vellos _author. That's KAT, V as in Victor, ELLOS. But really, I'm digging more into my newsletter audience this year because our conversations go deeper. Our engagement is a lot more real than just like a thumbs up, like you're talking about in the group text. Like you can just go deeper, I think, in that email format. So I would love to connect. Reach out anytime. Thanks again for having me on the show, Nina. This has been a delight.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us your time. And Kat does have an excellent newsletter that I subscribe to. I recommend it highly. And everybody, I hope you'll take a chance to rate and review the show. As always, I do like to end my show with my little tagline, which is, when our friendships are going well, we are happier all around. I hope that your texting friendships are successful from here on out, everybody. See you in a couple weeks.